Okay, I'll just continue. Which of course for you is not. Chapter 15. Hook or me this time. Wow, okay. Yeah, it's still good craftsmanship. Odd things happen to all of us on our way through life, without our noticing for a time that they have happened. Thus, to take an instance, we suddenly discover that we have been deaf in one ear for we don't know how long, but say half an hour. Now such an experience had come that night to Peter. When last we saw him, he was stealing across the island with one finger to his lips and his dagger at the ready. He had seen the crocodile pass by without noticing anything peculiar about it, but by and by he remembered that it had not been ticking. At first he thought this eerie, but soon concluded rightly that the clock had run down. Without giving a thought to what might be the feelings of a fellow creature, thus abruptly deprived of its closest companion, Peter at once considered how he could turn. Wait, I actually want to know. Peter. He figured it out. Peter at once considered how he could turn the catastrophe to his own use, and he decided to tick so that wild beasts should believe he was the crocodile and let him pass unmolested. He ticked superbly, but with one unforeseen result. The crocodile was among those who heard the sound, and it followed him, though whether with the purpose of regaining what it had lost, or merely as a friend under the belief that it was again ticking itself, will never be certainly known, for like slaves to a fixed idea, it was a stupid beast. Yeah, I wouldn't say that about a crocodile. Peter reached the shore without mishap and went straight on, his legs encountering the water as if quite unaware that they had entered a new element. Thus many animals pass from land to water, but no other human of whom I know. As he swam he had but one thought, hook or me this time. He had ticked so long that he now went on ticking without knowing that he was doing it. Had he known, he would have stopped for to board the brig by the help of the tick, though an ingenious idea had not occurred to him. On the contrary, he thought he had scaled her side as noise. Wow, I have to clean my nose. Oh, that's the book. So yeah, never underestimate like honest work, something you really feel like doing. Never underestimate that. Just gonna put on a sweater, because otherwise I will cool out now. Don't want that. And drink the rest of this tea. I mean, it's interesting because I've recorded so many hours of myself. That you can literally see the change. It's just hard to believe that this is actually possible. Like, without sugar and without masturbation, it's a whole different you. That's like the most profound things. And without coffee and without gluten. It seems so little, but if that was all you ate and did, then yeah, okay. It just takes time. Wow, now I'm getting to this point again where I just don't want to do this. Okay. On the contrary, he thought he had scaled her, sighed as noiseless as a mouse. Wow. Where was I? You see, it's so easy. You're in one moment, it's good, and suddenly you... bleh. He thought he had scaled her, sighed as noiseless as a mouse, and he was amazed to see the pirates cowering. Wow, this is so crazy. I have to take off this sweater. So depending on who you wear clothes from, it can really change you. Which is why even that has to be conscious. Maybe it wasn't that. Okay, now I have to think of something. How can this be? Seriously. Like, try to explain this to yourself. I don't know if everyone is like this. One moment you feel good, you think, oh, I'll just continue, and suddenly you're back in some kind of a swamp or something. I don't know. Maybe I'm overdoing it. Should I be cleaning or something? I'm gonna finish this chapter. Shouldn't be. I think it's the topic. I think it's the topic. I don't know. Okay. Wow, there's something weird going on. What is this? I'm not making this up, by the way. I really perceive things like angry energy or something. You can call this angry spirit, you can call this whatever you want. But it happens unexpected. You know, everything's fine, I'm doing really great, I'm reading, and suddenly there's something like zoom. And I never get how this comes about. Really, I don't get it. You know? So people listen to this, they think I'm making it up. I'm not making it up, that's really... Sometimes I feel like, yeah, it's just strange to say this, like knives being, you know, stabbing me, but I don't see knives, you know, I'm here in this apartment. There's like another side and there's something happening which makes life for me really complicated in relation to other people, which is why I am secluding myself mostly. I mean, I had recently an encounter because I was asked to do like gardening in this house where I live in, and I did it for some time and it just went complete haywire. And then it was my neighbor. It's like we just had like a conflict, but it was so painful like really like you're rolling around in shards of glass, and not shards of glass that were smoothened by water or something, but like freshly, you know, freshly broken glass. That's how I felt like afterwards. I said, yeah, I'm never going to go into this garden again. I went yesterday night because it was my duty to bring out the trash bins for collection today. So there's this image and I call it burdened with omnipresence. So I feel things on a lot of levels at the same time. So I am maybe here, but then let's imagine 5% are suddenly somewhere else and they're being attacked. How do I know this is happening? I'm standing in the same apartment where I just felt good in, and suddenly something is happening. I don't know what this is. It's like I had moments where I felt like I was living in Valhalla. Is this because of the black tea now? I don't know. What is it? You see why whatever yoga is, that's why it's called the shadow dance also. It's not easy, you know. Not all of us survive. And you don't have to commit suicide. I mean, I have met content creators that were not really the warrior type, but they tried to act as though, right? Just for the fame. Yeah, they died of cancer. But cancer is just too much chaos. You want to channel energy in dark times like this, where you get a lot of attention? Yeah, you better know your stuff, man. You cannot just do this for fun. Yeah, because they're gonna tear you apart. And if you identify with these things, well, there's something. Right side, abdomen. It feels familiar. I don't know what this is. Is it like a different realm? I really try to understand this. I haven't. Maybe I have to cover myself with like a blanket or something? It's really serious. I mean, there's probably a reason why a lot of shamans, they like wear ponchos. I don't believe... Oh wait, where is this blanket? Oh. So yeah, life is scary. That's what I find. That's why I learned to deal a bit with fear. I don't know where it is. Where's the damn blanket? You know, every time you need the damn blanket, it isn't there. I just feel anxious about a lot of stuff. Is it the position? It's like, is it where I'm standing? Should I stand somewhere else? What is this? So it feels like a constantly stabbing into my maybe liver. Right side from... That's why I'm putting on my shirt now. I was looking for something red, but it wasn't the blanket. Okay, let's see. I think that was it. Makes no sense. That's all I can say. Oh wow, now I'm feeling better. Now I'm getting goosebumps. Strange, isn't it? So be aware. That's why I said I stopped filming myself. I'm just saying, this is no joke. If you're feeling it, then it is real to you. That's all you have to know. Be glad that you pick up on these things, because then you can find solutions. Back in the days, you know, there's a reason also why usually Muslims cover themselves up. It's simply to protect yourself. You think it makes no sense? Yeah, it makes sense. There's a difference if I wear clothes in public or if I'm naked. I'm just saying. So it's better to protect yourself. It's about layers. So yeah, so this audiobook is not for the faint-hearted. Because this isn't, I mean, when I worked with Gandhi's Satyagraha, I have released this video, Understanding Gandhi's Vision. It's also on odyssey.com. I really felt being haunted, so I had to do a lot of, I don't know, mind wandering. Okay, man, what's up to me? Finish the book. That's my resolve now. And once I've done this, then I'm gonna clean. And then I can render the rest of these videos. Also I have to work on currency. Okay. Let's just see if I can survive doing this. On the contrary, he thought, he had scaled her side as noiseless as a mouse. And he was amazed to see the pirates cowering from him, with Hook in their midst as abject as if he had heard the crocodile. The crocodile, no sooner did Peter remember it than he heard the ticking. At first he thought the sound did come from the crocodile, and he looked behind him swiftly. Then he realized that he was doing it himself, and in a flash he understood the situation. How clever of me, he thought at once, and signed to the boys to not to burst into applause. It was at this moment that Tainte, the quartermaster, emerged from the forecastle and came along the deck. Now, reader, time what happened by your watch. Peter struck true and deep. John clapped his hands on the ill-fated pirate's mouth to stifle the dying groan. He fell forward. 4 boys caught him to prevent the thud. Peter gave the signal, and the carry-on was cast overboard. There was a splash, and then silence. How long has it taken? 1 slightly had begun to count. None too soon Peter, every inch of him on tiptoe, vanished into the cabin, for more than one pirate was screwing up his courage to look round. They could hear each other's distressed breathing now, which showed them that the more terrible sound had passed. "It's gone, Captain," Smee said, wiping his spectacles. "All's still again." Slowly Hook let his head emerge from his ruff, and listened so intently that he could have caught the echo of the tick. There was not a sound, and he drew himself up firmly to his full height. "Then here's to Johnny Plank," he cried brazenly, hating the boys more than ever because they had seen him unbend. Seen him unbend. He broke into the villainous ditty. Yo ho, the frisky plank, you walks along it so, till it goes down and goes down to Davy Jones below. To terrorize the prisoners the more, though with a certain loss of dignity, he danced along an imaginary plank, grimacing at them as he sang. And when he finished, he cried, "Do you want a touch of the cat before you walk the plank?" What? Is he like a pervert? At that they fell... Oh, the cat. I don't know what it is. At that they fell on their knees. "No, no," they cried so piteously that every pirate smiled. "Fetch the cat, Jukes," said Hook. "It's in the cabin." He really means a cat? The cabin. Peter was in the cabin. The children gazed at each other. "Aye, aye," said Jukes blithely, and he strode into the cabin. They followed him with their eyes. They scarce knew that Hook had resumed his song, his dogs joining in with him. Yo ho, the scratching cat, its tails are 9, you know, and when they're writ upon your back... Oh, the cat. That's probably then like a whip. What was the last line will never be known, for of a sudden the song was stayed by a dreadful screech from the cabin. It wailed through the ship and died away. Then was heard a crowing sound which was well understood by the boys, but to the pirates was almost more eerie than the screech. I'm gonna keep it down a little now. Yeah, it's a bit later in the day now. "What was that?" cried Hook. "Two," said slightly sullenly. The Italian Cecco hesitated for a moment and then swung into the cabin. He tottered out, haggard. "What's the matter with Bill Jukes, you dog?" hissed Hook, towering over him. "The matter with him is he dead, stabbed," replied Cecco in a hollow voice. "Bill Jukes dead?" cried the startled pirates. "The cabin's as black as a pit," Cecco said, almost gibbering. "Well, there's something terrible in there, the thing you heard crowing." The exultation of the boys, the lowering looks of the pirates, both were seen by Hook. "Cecco," he said in his most steely voice, "go back and fetch me out that doodle-doo." Cecco, bravest of the brave, cowered before his captain, crying, "No, no," but Hook was purring to his claw. "Did you say you would go, Cecco?" he said musingly. Cecco went, first flinging up his arms despairingly. There was no more singing. All listened now. And again came a death screech, and again a crow. No one spoke except slightly. "3," he said. Hook rallied his dogs with a gesture. "Steth and odds fish," he thundered. It's like, death? It is death or something? "Steth and odds fish," he thundered. "Who is to bring me that doodle-doo?" "Wait till Cecco comes out," growled Starkey, and the others took up the cry. "I think I heard you volunteer, Starkey," said Hook, purring again. "No, by thunder," Starkey cried. "My Hook thinks you did," said Hook, crossing to him. "I wonder if it would not be advisable, Starkey, to humor the Hook." "I'll swing before I get in there," replied Starkey doggedly. And again he had the support of the crew. "Is it mutiny?" asked Hook more pleasantly than ever, Starkey's ringleader. "Captain, mercy," Starkey whimpered, all of a tremble now. "Shake hands, Starkey," said Hook, proffering his claw. Starkey looked round for help, but all deserted him. As he backed, Hook advanced, and now the red spark was in his eye. With a despairing scream, the pirate leapt upon Long Tom and precipitated himself into the sea. "4," said Slightly. "And now," Hook asked courteously, he's getting rid of his own men in the face of danger. I mean, that's really stupid. 4, said he's more afraid than what's in the cabin, right? So he just turns upon his own men. I mean, that's just an idiot. Yeah. 4, said Slightly, and now, Hook asked courteously, "Did any other gentleman..." Yeah, but that's basically what's happening in society. Everyone's turning on each other. Because we cannot trust each other anymore. That's a real problem, my man. Or woman. We cannot trust each other anymore. So we gotta work on that by trusting yourself. You have to learn to trust yourself. I mean, you couldn't trust me. Because, I'm not gonna live your life. Or, I mean, I'm not part of your life. I have certain people that are important to me, and they can trust me to do what I feel is right. Right? So sometimes we want to trust people, but we have different ideas about life. And that doesn't really work. So you want to trust in a captain, but the captain is a coward. So he's going to turn on you when it gets, It's like, "Please help me, I don't want to go into the cabin, you go." "What are you talking about? You're the captain, you should do this." There was this Viking story that I found somewhere, like a book, somebody read it. Eric or something. Don't remember. No, wait. Eric. Nah. Yeah, doesn't matter. It was just one of these Viking things. Wow, what was he called? Eric. Yeah. Seizing a lantern and raising his claw with a menacing gesture, "I'll bring out that doodle-doo myself," he said, and sped into the cabin. 5. How Slightly longed to say it. He wetted his lips to be ready, but Hook came staggering out without his lantern. "Someone blew out the light," he said a little unsteadily. "Something," echoed Mullins. "What of Checo?" demanded Noodler. "He's as dead as Jukes," said Hook shortly. His reluctance to return to the cabin impressed them all unfavorably, and the mutinous sounds again broke forth. All pirates are superstitious, and Cookson cried, "They do say the surest thing a ship's accursed... They do say the surest thing sign a ship's accursed is when there's one on board more than can be accounted for." "I've heard," muttered Mullins. "He always boards the pirate craft at last. Had he a tail captain?" "They say," said another, looking viciously at Hook, "that when he comes it's in the likeness of the wickedest man aboard." "Had he a hook, captain?" asked Cookson Erickson. No. Insolently. No. I don't remember. And one after another took up the cry, "The ship's doomed." At this the children could not resist raising a cheer. Hook had well nigh forgotten his prisoners, but as he swung round on them, now his face lit up again. "Lads," he cried to his crew, "here's a notion. Open the cabin door and drive them in. Let them fight the doodle-doo for their lives. If they kill him, we're so much the better. If he kills them, we're none the worse." For the last time his dogs admired Hook, and devotedly they did his bidding. The boys, pretending to struggle, were pushed into the cabin, and the door was closed on them. "Now listen," cried Hook, and all listened. But not one dared to face the door. Yes, one, Wendy, who all this time had been bound to the mast. It was for neither a scream nor a crow that she was watching, it was for the appearance of Peter. She had not long to wait. In the cabin he had found the thing for which he had gone in search, the key that would free the children of their manacles, and now they all stole forth, armed with such weapons as they could find, first signing to them to hide. Peter cut Wendy's bonds, and then nothing could have been easier than for them all to fly off together. But one thing barred the way, an oath: "Hook or me this time." So when he had freed Wendy, he whispered to her to conceal herself with the others, and himself took her place by the mast, her cloak around him so that he should pass for her. Then he took a great breath and crowed. To the pirates it was a voice crying that all the boys lay slain in the cabin, and they were panic-stricken. Hook tried to hearten them, but like the dogs he had made them, they showed him their fangs, and he knew that if he took his eyes off them now, they would leap at him. "Lads," he said, ready to cajole or strike as need be, but never quailing for an instant, "I've thought it out. There's a Jonah aboard." "Aye," they snarled. "Aye," they snarled. A man with a hook. "No, lads, no, it's the girl. Never was luck on a pirate ship with a woman on board. We'll right the ship when she's gone." Some of them remembered that this had been a saying of Flint's. "It's worth trying," they said doubtfully. "Fling the girl overboard," cried Hook, and they made a rush at the figure in the cloak. "There's none can save you now, Missy," Mullins hissed jeeringly. "There's one," replied the figure. "Who's that?" "Peter Pan, the Avenger," came the terrible answer, and as he spoke, Peter flung off his cloak. Never drink Coke, or anything of them. And never take cocaine, my friend. I have never taken it, and I'm glad. So, well, it may actually be in sugar. You don't know that. That's why I would stop eating sugar. Okay, some of them remembered that this had been a saying of Flint's. Okay. "Who's that?" "Peter Pan, the Avenger," came the terrible answer, and as he spoke, Peter flung off his cloak. Then they all knew who 'twas that had been undoing them in the cabin, and twice Hook essayed to speak, and twice he failed. In that frightful moment, I think his fierce heart broke. At last he cried, "Cleave him to the brisket," but without conviction. "Down, boys, and at them!" Peter's voice rang out, and in another moment the clash of arms was resounding through the ship. Had the pirates kept together, it is certain that they would have won. But the onset came when they were all unstrung, and they ran hither and thither, striking wildly, each thinking himself the last survivor of the crew. Man to man they were the stronger, but they fought on the defensive only, which enabled the boys to hunt in pairs and choose their quarry. Some of the miscreants leapt into the sea, others hid in dark recesses, where they were found by Slightly, who did not fight but ran about with a lantern which he flashed in their faces, so that they were half blinded and fell an easy prey to the reeking swords of the other boys. There was little sound to be heard but the clang of weapons, an occasional screech or splash, and slightly monotonously counting 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Oh, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. I think all were gone then when a group of savage boys surrounded Hook, who seemed to have a charmed life as he kept them at bay in that circle of fire. They had done for his dogs, but this man alone seemed to be a match for them all. Again and again they closed upon him, and again he hewed a clear space. He had lifted up one boy with his hook and was using him as a buckler, when another, who had just passed his sword through Mullins, sprang into the fray. "Put up your swords, boys," cried the newcomer. "This man is mine." Thus suddenly Hook found himself face to face with Peter. The others drew back and formed a ring round them. For long the two enemies looked at one another, Hook shuddering slightly, and Peter with the strange smile upon his face. "So, Pan," said Hook at last, "this is all your doing." "Aye, James Hook," came the stern answer, "it is all my doing." "Proud and insolent youth," said Hook, "prepare to meet thy doom." "Dark and sinister man," Peter answered, "have at thee." Without more words they fell to, and for a space there was no advantage to either blade. Peter was a superb swordsman, and parried with dazzling rapidity. Ever and anon he followed up a feint with a lunge that got past his foe's defense, but his shorter reach stood him in ill stead, and he could not drive the steel home. Hook, scarcely his inferior in brilliancy, but not quite so nimble in wrist play, forced him back by the weight of his onset, hoping suddenly to end all with a favorite thrust, taught him long ago by barbecue at Rio. But to his astonishment he found this thrust turned aside again and again. Then he sought to close and give the quietus with his iron hook, which all this time had been pawing the air. But Peter doubled under it and, lunging fiercely, pierced him in the ribs. At sight of his own blood, whose peculiar color, you remember, was offensive to him, the sword fell from Hook's hand, and he was at Peter's mercy. "Now," cried all the boys, but with a magnificent gesture Peter invited his opponent to pick up his sword. Hook did so instantly, but with a tragic feeling that Peter was showing good form. He truly was. He has done so more often. Hitherto he had thought it was some fiend fighting him, but darker suspicions assailed him now. Pan, who and what art thou?" he cried huskily. "I'm youth, I'm joy," Peter answered at adventure. "I'm a little bird that has broken out of the egg." This, of course, was nonsense, but it was proof to the unhappy Hook that Peter did not know in the least who or what he was, which is the very pinnacle of good form. But he just answered it. "I'm youth, I'm joy. Here you go." And because, Hook is already grown up and his broken inner child, he wants to break Peter. So he hates himself because apparently he has been broken at some point. So why does the author contradict actually a good point in a story? He just wants to ridicule everyone. I don't like this. This, of course, was nonsense. Why nonsense? He says, "I'm youth, I'm joy." Hey, I think that's what a lot of people are afraid of, or that they want to have, and then they want to control it. Mothers who want to keep their children from growing up and stuff. Well, better teach your children to be tough than to put them into a bubble, try to protect them. I'm youth, I'm joy, right? Okay, which is the very pinnacle of good form. "To it again," he cried despairingly. He fought now like a human flail, and every sweep of that terrible sword would have severed in twain any man or boy who obstructed it. So in twain, severed in twain is like cut in half, I believe. So in two sides. He fought now yoga again, or what? Bring it together, man. He fought now like a human flail, and every sweep of that terrible sword would have severed in twain any man or boy who obstructed it. But Peter fluttered round him, as if the very wind it made blew him out of the danger zone, and again he darted in and pricked. Hook was fighting now without hope. That passionate breast no longer asked for life, but for one boon it craved, to see Peter show bad form before it was cold forever. Abandoning the fight, he rushed into the powder magazine and fired it. I have literally met people like this, who were so ridiculous, they just want to see you fail. And if you don't fail, you know, they'll just keep trying, and that just makes it really tedious. Because they never focus on themselves, you know. They just want someone else to show bad form so they can feel better about themselves. If you start growing spiritually, that's why you simply have to leave people behind, because they'll start hating you for it, because they simply are the way they are, and they are reluctant to change. Okay, Hook was fighting now without hope. Okay, show bad form before it was cold forever. Abandoning the fight, he rushed into the powder magazine and fired it. In 2 minutes, he cried, the ship will be blown to pieces. Now, he thought, true form will show. But Peter issued from the powder magazine with the shell in his hands and calmly flung it overboard. What sort of form was Hook himself showing? Misguided man though he was, we may be glad without sympathizing with him that in the end he was true to the traditions of his race. The other boys were flying around him now, flouting, scornful, and as he staggered about the deck, striking up at them impotently, his mind was no longer with them. It was slouching in the playing fields of long ago, or being sent up for good, or watching the wall game from a famous wall. And his shoes were right, and his waistcoat was right, and his tie was right, and his socks were right. James Hook, thou not wholly unheroic figure, farewell. For we have come to his last moment, seeing Peter slowly advancing upon him. You know, that's basically society. People dress in a way they think, this is good, they're gonna like me, if I do this, then, I'll have good form. And then other people are more like, I want to have really bad form. But they still think this to be cool or something. No, you just wear what expresses, just what you like the most. And then you just gotta have to wear this. But you can also wear things that create a certain effect. But you always have to be, you try to live with grace, right? Try to live with grace. So you have to be graceful. So, do your planks, hike barefoot, become a proper human. It's not. That's just basic. Ding dang ding 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 dang dang ding. Ding dang ding 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 ding. So people have seen me moving around some kind of a space. They said, are you flying? It's like so nimble. Yeah, I'm just, barefoot a lot. Well, maybe that's not all there is to it. But who can tell? Okay. For we have come to this last... Okay, James Hook, thou not wholly unheroic figure, farewell. For we have come to this last moment. Seeing Peter slowly advancing upon him... Seeing Peter slowly advancing upon him through the air with dagger poised, he sprang upon the bulwarks to cast himself into the sea. He did not know that the crocodile was waiting for him, for we purposely stopped the clock that this knowledge might be spared him, a little mark of respect from us at the end. He had one last triumph, which I think we need not grudge him, as he stood on the bulwark, looking over his shoulder at Peter gliding through the air. He invited him with a gesture to use his foot. It made Peter kick instead of stab. At last Hook had got the boon for which he craved. "Bad form," he cried jeeringly, and went content to the crocodile. Just this point, you just give him what he wants, I'll just show you bad form, you just jump by yourself, good luck. Yeah, I was appalled by some people that I met along the way, and I couldn't wait to get rid of them. While others I am quite hopeful, to maybe see again. "Bad form," he cried jeeringly, and went content to the crocodile. "Thus perished James Hook." 17 slightly sang out, but he was not quite correct in his figures. 15 paid the penalty for their crimes that night, but 2 reached the shore, Starkey to be captured by the Redskins, who made him nurse for all their purposes. A melancholy come down for a pirate, and Smee, who henceforth wandered about the world in his spectacles, making a precarious living by saying he was the only man that Jazz Hook had feared. Wendy, of course, had stood by taking no part in the fight. It's possibly true. I mean, he got Hook to cry, right? So maybe Smee was holding something over him. Wendy, of course, had stood by taking no part in the fight, though watching Peter with glistening eyes, but now that all was over, she became prominent again. She praised them equally and shuddered delightfully when Michael showed her the place where he had killed one, and then she took them into Hook's cabin and pointed to his watch, which was hanging on a nail. It said 1:30. The lateness of the hour was almost the biggest thing of all. She got them to bed in the pirates' bunks pretty quickly. Wow! You may be sure, all but Peter, who strutted up and down on deck until at last he fell asleep by the side of Long Tom. He had one of his dreams that night and cried in his sleep for a long time. And Wendy held him tight. It's just really hard to imagine this, because they're just children. So if he had a transformative dream, maybe all will be well in the end. Who knows? Some dreams are very revealing, and some are just really strange. So I don't usually cling to dreams, but some I simply remember. And sometimes they come back on their own. But I don't know what dreams really are. Sometimes I felt like they were omens, but sometimes dreams also just felt silly. I have had dreams which really taught me stuff, but I'm not sure. There are dreams I really remember, especially also when it came to my recent developments. I realized that the last time I crashed with the masturbation thing, I didn't masturbate, it was in a dream. That's crazy, isn't it? It was in a dream. Like a sexual dream. So even in your dream you have to choose to withhold. And that's then the last pinnacle, like the last thing to overcome wet dreams. So at one point you simply always tighten the muscles in your pelvic floor. They just become tight, like hardened. So you're not flowing out anymore, but up. And that's then when the real cleansing starts. And that's when your paranoia will vanish at some point. Ah, that was that. Right, so that's basically what you have to do. But to stop with masturbation, so you have to reduce the things that create pressure, that just create too much chaos, which is why I have distinguished certain tools, such as coffee, tobacco, sugar. They create a lot of chaos in yourself, and then you just masturbate. And I often felt like other people were doing this to me. So yeah, I mean, I'm facing shadows that try to creep into my life and into my mind. And often I meet them as people, which is scary, but also revealing. If you know who's been doing it, you can keep them at bay. I tell people, don't touch me, right? Do not touch me, because it'll corrupt me. I don't want this anymore. Okay, this was chapter 15, right? Cheerio.